Having a really good conversation with Senator Raumesh Akbari from the Memphis area. We're talking specifically about a proposed change to the Tennessee Constitution around Amendment 3. We're going to get back to that here in a few minutes. But as we were talking in the commercial break, you are here to represent people of your district.
Right.
And so when you go to the table, you're really the face of everyone there. People do need to get involved. You need to know what they're thinking, right? And where they stand on things.
So I tell people, look, the best way to make your issues known is to talk directly to your legislator. Make an appointment. If you don't want to come to Nashville, meet them when they're in the district. Handwritten notes always catch people's attention. You know, sometimes we'll get on a certain issue 1,000 emails in 15 minutes. It makes the issue known, but it's not as personal. Like, some of those people don't even live in the state. So I think that one-on-one contact is always important. And just know that a lot of our best legislation comes from our constituents. I had a constituent who was from Georgia, wanted to be able to have a mobile barbershop. It was illegal in Tennessee. His grandmother wrote me an email. I connected with him, and we passed a law, and now he has a mobile barbershop going around cutting people's hair.
Earning a living. That's what we want everybody to do, right?
Yeah.
Contribute to the state, pay your taxes, make your money.
Right. So just, your ideas might sound silly to you, but we can make a change, and we can kind of change how your life goes. So
you were behind the Crown Act too, weren't you?
Yes, I was behind the Crown Act. So that was a really big deal. Worked on that for about 4 years. Really difficult to get people on board because they didn't understand what it was.
Right. Explain it, because I just
say the Crown Act prohibits workplace discrimination based on your hair. And people think, oh, that's not an issue, but it really is. It depends on, you know, where you are. I had a mortuary student who reached out to me and said, listen, my class will not allow me to have braids. And like, I've worn braids for 12 years. And I said, you know what, we're working on this. We're working on it. So it's something that we got unanimously out of the Senate. The House, it passed by 1 vote. So you just never know. But worked a lot with the chair of commerce to get that through. And it was a process. But Tennessee is the first state in the South to pass that legislation.
I know other states are addressing that, though, but it surprises me. It took 4 years. I mean, I think that's where some people get very disenfranchised with politics, and they don't believe that change can be made.
And now I tell folks, look, it's gradual. It happens over time because you have so many competing interests and people come from so many different walks of life. You know, my colleague from East Tennessee that's bald doesn't understand what's going on in an urban district in Memphis where you have a lot of people wearing different ethnic hairstyles. And so we kind of had to bridge that gap. Like, when I talk about a protective hairstyle, I'm not talking about a protective class. I'm talking about a type of hairstyle. And so I think once you got all that aside and then you take care of the concerns of safety and the business community and all these different interests, then you can get a good piece of legislation through. And that's really how everything works. It takes time because you have so many competing interests. I mean, wine and grocery stores took 10 years.
Yes, it did. You know what, that's a really good point. There are a lot of different interests that have to come to the table and find common ground. And as you pointed out before, that means not everyone's walking away with their full bag of wishes, right?
Exactly. Usually that's how you know it's a good compromise, if everyone is moderately unhappy.
You got to give up a little something, right? Right?
For sure.
But it's just important that people bring up those concerns, because you can't be aware of everything.
No, definitely not. I mean, we are a citizen legislature. We work for you. This is your House, your Senate, your tax dollars at work, and don't ever feel like, oh, I don't like how this person is or I don't like what they're doing. Reach out and talk to them. If you don't like what your elected official is doing, let them know. I mean, obviously be nice. No one wants to work with someone who's mean to them, but you know, be nice and just let them know and come visit. I know it's more difficult for people who don't live in Nashville, but hit them up at a district event. Most of us are out there in our community.
Absolutely. You mentioned in the commercial break to me that you are the second youngest senator in the state of Tennessee, and you've been doing this since 2013, started in the House. As a young person, why did you say, this is something that I want to do and believe I can do?
It's absolutely insane. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I felt like, you know, if I want to make an impact, if I want to make a change, it's one thing to advocate for legislation. It's another thing to be in a position, in a seat where you can make that change. And it was something, I was one of those weirdos that kind of decided that early on. And I just happened to run. I was being mentored by someone, and I ran for an open seat and won. But for me, it's like, how can we take a problem and work towards a solution? Or how can we demystify government? I remember my second week in office, a woman called my office and she's like, I've been trying to get a wheelchair for my mother for months. And it's like, I made one phone call, took care of it. Or a school in my district, they had grass that was 6 feet tall. I think one of the guys ended up being on Ellen because of how he would walk the kids home. One phone call to the county, they cut the grass. Like, it makes a difference what we can do as elected officials, and so that's why I like to do it. I do want more young people involved. In the House, you have to be 22 to run for a seat. In the Senate, you have to be 30. I say, come on and do it. I mean, when you have your voice at the table, you bring your perspective with you, and you can really implement change and kind of show people who have seen life in a different way, kind of something different.
Do you often feel like you're the voice saying, hey, but have you considered this?
I definitely felt that way, especially when I first got there. We have, so London Lamar is in the Senate as well, and she's one of my colleagues from Memphis, and so she's 32, I think, and so she's bringing a totally different young perspective there. But definitely, especially when it comes to Memphis, because I didn't realize till I got to the legislature that people might not have liked Memphis as much as I do. So definitely like, hey, it's great, you know? I mean, I know, forget what you hear or read, you know, I've never been a victim of crime, knock on wood. So like, it's a great city. So yeah, it's about changing perspectives statewide. You know, I've never been to parts of East Tennessee, so, you know, we'll give and take with each other.
Hey, we have our first call of the night. Sandra's on the line. Good evening, Sandra. Thanks for being part of the show.
Thank you. Have you discussed Amendment 3? I was more or less focused on when the Supreme Court turned the decision in regards to abortion up to the individual states. And I'm aware that here in Tennessee and I guess in other states as well, there's a trigger law. And if the way I'm understanding it, only if the mother's life is in danger, you know, if her life is threatened in some form or fashion, only then can an abortion be performed.
Well, Sandra,
so I know that's a gray area, but I just want to know how the state is approaching that.
I can explain that. It's different from Amendment 3, which gives us good reason to get back there. But I'm going to hang up so you can listen to your TV. It's sometimes easier to do it that way. So thank you for calling in. Amendment 3, which is a proposed change to the Tennessee Constitution, is different than the trigger ban, which is now in effect in Tennessee. And there is no exception for the health of the mother in that law. It will be on the responsibility of a doctor who performs an abortion to prove, after they have been arrested, that the mother's health was in grave danger. So that is how that law reads. There is no exception for the life of a mother. Abortion is now illegal in the state of Tennessee. I hope that's more clear. But that is not Amendment 3 that you will see on the ballot in November.
No, it's not, but I am hoping that the General Assembly will address this in January, because doctors, hospitals are really caught in a very difficult position where if the doctor makes a decision they feel is best for the life of the mother, it's an affirmative defense. It's not an exception, and that risk ruining their lives, their medical license, being incarcerated. So I'm hoping in January we will deal with that. Amendment 3 is completely different, though. It has to do with removing the exception for slavery from the Tennessee Constitution, and that is specifically just closing that loophole so that those who are incarcerated will not, or in any capacity, ever be forced into indentured servitude or slavery.
And again, as Sandra pointed out, again, two separate issues, but it took federal action to then, you know, trigger Tennessee's trigger ban. People may say, but hey, we've got the 13th Amendment. That prohibits slavery. Like, we're done with it. Why do we need this?
Well, so our Constitution adopted the same language as the 13th Amendment. And I think states across the country are saying, we need to get rid of this exception because this is our Constitution. It reflects our values. It governs what we can do within the state of Tennessee. And so regardless of what's in the federal Constitution, if our Constitution says, you know, obviously federal trumps state, but our Constitution should at least reflect the values of our state.
And it's surprising that here we are in 2022. And this is now an issue on our ballot.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, I think that people are kind of recognizing it. They're really looking at the Constitution as this not just historic document, but this living, breathing, governing document that not just reflects laws, but also morals and values. And I think that you saw that in the last election cycle, where you did get an amendment added to the Constitution that said that there's nothing in this Constitution that protects a woman's right to an abortion, which paved the way for all of this trigger legislation. And then once the federal decision came down, there was no protection in any capacity that existed.
How optimistic are you that that will be added when it comes to the abortion ban, the trigger ban, that things will kind of be rolled back to protect the life of the mother?
I'm pretty optimistic. I think if we can keep it focused on the science and not get politics involved, then something can change, because you do have doctors who are in a very difficult position, and you have mothers who are as well. And at the end of the day, we want to be able to protect and preserve that life. And we don't want doctors to have to get arrested to make that decision.
And I think that that's something, and I will even take some of the blame for this as a journalist, that we have not made exceptionally clear, because it wasn't clear to us, and I don't think it was clear to a lot of lawmakers before they voted.
That legislation passed in the the middle of the night. I mean, that literally in the middle of the night, and it was something that I don't think that we contemplated. And because Roe v. Wade was there and had been there for so long, this legislation was extremely vague and poorly written.
Yeah. All right, we're going to leave it there tonight. Thank you for being here.
Of course,
appreciate
my pleasure.
it. Good conversation. When we come back, I'll tell you what's on tap for the rest of the week. Stay with us.